Good evening and welcome to the Somerville Redevelopment Authority meeting of February 21st, 2024. My name is Phil Ercolini. I'm the chair of the Somerville Redevelopment Authority, and I call this meeting to order at 5:47 p.m. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, this public meeting of the SRA is being conducted via remote participation. This session will be recorded and will be a public record. I will now ask the board members to confirm they are in attendance in alphabetical order. Awana Bani.
Here.
Ben Ewan Campen will not be joining us this evening. William Gage will be joining us in executive session. He's not going to be part of the open session. Patrick McCormick.
Here.
Christine Stone.
Here.
And myself, Phil Ercolini, are in attendance, so we do have a quorum. I'll now ask city staff to present a few of the house rules about using the technology. Ben?
Yep. Hi, everyone. Okay, just give me 1 second. Okay, so hi, everyone. My name is Ben Demers. I'm an economic development planner with the city, and I serve as staff to the Somerville Redevelopment Authority, or the SRA. When an agenda item is being presented this evening, any presentation materials that staff have received ahead of time will be displayed on the screen. If city staff or other participants wish to direct the board's attention to a specific page, they should verbally note what page staff should show on the screen and should then verbally explain to the board what is being shown. Please also note that this meeting is being conducted remotely using Zoom webinar in order to comply with open meeting law under state guidance, which does not allow for side conversation. The chat function amongst attendees has been disabled. If you as an attendee have a question or would like to make a comment on the matters discussed tonight, please use the raise hand function to indicate that you would like to speak. I will unmute participants one by one and give you 2 minutes to speak. And when it is your turn, please clearly state your name and address before saying anything else. After 2 minutes, your microphone will be muted. Please remember that any questions asked by attendees this evening will also be a part of the open record. And I'll now pass things to the SRA's special counsel, Catherine Lester-Selkert.
Good evening. My name is Catherine Lester-Selkert, and I am special counsel to the SRA. I want to remind all board members that all votes must be roll call votes with a motion and a second. The chair will call on each board member for a yes/no vote in alphabetical order. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. So we'll move to the first item on the agenda is approval of the January 17th general meeting minutes. Did all members have an opportunity to review the minutes?
Yes.
Have any comments, any recommendations, any errata noticed? Okay, I just saw one, Ben, on the first page of the, the second page, where it talks about Mr. Fields reviewed the responses from each firm. The highlighted one is Greystar. If you go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, sixth sentence says Greystar, and it says and is familiar with Somerville's redevelopment, but no, sorry. It's just the how it's sequenced there. Greystar and is familiar with Somerville's redevelopment environment. Do you see that, Ben?
I do, yeah. Thanks for catching that, Phil.
Okay, that's the only thing I saw.
All right, I'll make that correction before they're posted.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
I'll make a motion to approve minutes.
Awana Bonnie makes the motion. Is there to approve? Is there a second? Christine Stone seconds. A roll call vote. Awana Bonnie.
Yes.
Ben Ewan Campen is not here this evening. William Gage is not here for this portion of the meeting. Patrick McCormick.
Since I wasn't there, maybe I, through you, Mr. Chair, just vote present, I guess.
Okay. Patrick McCormick votes present. Christine Stone.
Yes.
And Phil Ercolini approved the minutes as amended.
Sorry, I just want to.
Okay.
Kathy.
Yeah,
maybe
I think we
saying
might
this
need
also.
I think we might need Patrick to vote yes. I mean, it's even though you weren't there, you are allowed to vote yes, and since
Okay.
I think we need your vote for a quorum. So
Okay.
yeah.
So,
We could
through
also-
you, Mr. Chair, yeah, I mean, I don't mind voting yes. I just wasn't sure if that was proper.
Yeah, you may.
Okay, so let the record indicate that Awana Bonnie, Patrick McCormick, Christine Stone, and Phil Ercolini have voted to approve the minutes as amended. The next item on the agenda is item number 2 is a public comment period. Ben, are there any members of the public who'd like to address the board at this time?
We have one member of the public in attendance this evening. They do not currently have their hand up, but if we want to give them a few moments.
Sure.
All right, through you, Mr. Chair, I'm not seeing any hands.
All right, Ben, thank you. I'm going to take agenda items out of sequence. Item number 7 is our next meeting is now scheduled for Tuesday, March 12th, 2024. And so it indicates this is a change in the meeting cadence. I just wanted to let the public know that we will be going forward meeting on the second Tuesday of each month. And I will again remind everyone at the end of this meeting as well, in case others members of the public join us at a later time. So the next item on the agenda is item number 3, 90 Washington Street, a demonstration project plan. Do we want to talk about that before we go to the subset?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the only update we have, I think, is in executive session, so there's no general updates from staff at this
Okay.
time.
All right, thank you. So then the subset is a request to go into executive session regarding Cobble Hills litigation. So I'll entertain a motion to do that, is to go into executive session, at the conclusion of which we will reopen in open session. So is there a motion to go into executive session? Christine makes the motion.
Motion.
Second,
Second,
Bonnie seconds, a roll call vote. Alana Bonnie.
yes.
Ben Ewan Campen is not with us. William Gage will be joining us in executive session. Patrick McCormick,
Yes.
Christine Stone, and
Yes.
myself, Phil Erkling, have voted to go into executive session. So we'll see you, we'll see you in executive session.
Rachel, just because I'm going to talk to the next couple of items, can I ask you to also keep an eye on the participant tab? Thank you.
Can you hear me now, as they say?
But he is there.
If,
I can't move him over, but William Valletta is in the attendee list.
Patrick is here. Okay, so we have a quorum. So we're we're in open session and we'll continue with items on the agenda. The next item on the agenda, item number 4, is a context for consideration of urban renewal in Gilman Square.
Yeah, so I'll take that item, Mr. Chair. Just give me 1 second.
Yes.
Okay. Let me share my screen. Can you all see this?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So going to be covering 2 items today on the agenda. For the first, we're going to be talking about some context about urban renewal considerations within Gilman Square. So an SRA member had requested an update regarding the status of considerations to use urban renewal in Gilman Square, since it's come up in previous meetings. So I'm going to take some time here this evening to give context, pulling largely from an update that the Economic Development Division gave in November to the City Council on the implementation of the Gilman Square Station Area Plan. So to give a little history, the Gilman Square Station Area Plan was published in 2014, and its goal was to shape both public and private investment that was going to coincide with the arrival of the Green Line rapid transit system to Somerville. So it looked at the area around the Gilman Square T station, centered around the intersection of Pearl Street, Medford Street, and Marshall Street. And at that time, the MBTA's designs for the station showed it opening directly onto Medford Street. So you can see here where the station would have been placed. It's not placed there currently. And you can see here a rendering. This is if you're looking from Medford Street up Medford. This is Pearl Street down here. So there was really a lot of focus right on that intersection. As people who have been to the station now know, the entrances today are from the School Street Bridge and then also from the community path. So we don't have this entrance right on off of Medford Street, but the station did open in 2022. As the plan read, a consensus solidified around a vision that Gilman Square's future should resemble its past, a neighborhood square that offered a mix of service, employment, cultural, and transportation options to residents of the station area. Participants called for new 4-story mixed-use development in the core of the former business district to complement the surviving historic commercial buildings. So you can get a sense of what people were looking for in this neighborhood. And the plan distilled the desires of residents and other local stakeholders into a series of 9 broad objectives, including things like providing more affordable housing, supporting the local economy, and then what it referred to as filling in the gaps. So I'm going to get into this part of the plan. Filling in the gaps in this case meant considering how to spur development on sites that residents felt were not contributing to this vision of the square. And they identified 5 such sites based around this proposed civic space at the intersection of Pearl, Medford, and Marshall Streets that does not currently exist, but at the time that was being proposed as sort of a new neighborhood hub, a new center of the neighborhood. And again, that station would have opened directly onto that hub. And this is the section in the plan that explicitly named the Somerville Redevelopment Authority. So I've included on the right the text that names the authority as an entity that could get involved in spurring this redevelopment. I'll read the text here. So these 5 sites frame the new civic space if it is developed according to this plan, and they work with Bring Back the Square, which was another one of the objectives in the plan, to make Gilman Square the hub of public life that it once was. Filling in the gaps in street frontage can be directly facilitated by using existing city land holdings, which include the Gilman Triangle and the Reed and Murdoch building sites, and we'll get a bit into where these are located, through the outright sale of property to a developer, a public-private partnership, or even urban renewal via the Somerville Redevelopment Authority. And then it named as one of the goals of the plan to explore the use of the Somerville Redevelopment Authority's urban renewal powers to incentivize redevelopment for sites identified in this plan. So that's really where the SRA gets pulled into this conversation around urban renewal in Gilman Square. And you can see here the two parcels that were already owned by the city that I just referenced, shown in blue. So this includes 350 Medford Street, and in blue here is the actual bounds of the lot. This is commonly referred to as the Homans lot, or in the plan as the Reed and Murdoch lot. So when you hear other city presentations on this, we'll commonly refer to it as both 350 Medford Street and the Homans lot. And then also this triangular park. So again, this shows the actual bounds of the lot today because this civic space was not constructed. And then for reference, here also is an image of the Homans lot. So this is from the western edge of the lot. You can see here a portion that is used for parking for Somerville High School teachers. The triangular lot is in the back, but the Homans lot is really where a lot of the attention is given. And then there is another lot here on the corner of School and Medford Street that's a mobile station. So since 2014, conversations about the use of urban renewal within Gilman Square have really focused on the mobile station at the corner of Pearl and Medford Street. So again, shown here in the red star. So it's this lot here. And these conversations have usually considered how urban renewal could be used in conjunction with redevelopment of the city's existing land holdings at 350 Medford Street and the Triangular Park. And part of why the mobile station has been of such interest is because the station area plan and other planning efforts have considered how the sites could be combined with the Homans lot to create a larger scale of development and better corner for the block there. And then sites 2, 3, and 5 from that original filling in the gap focus of the plan have really, the public conversations around these sites have really focused on private redevelopment. So there have been some proposals that have been made for those projects, though they have stalled. But really for those 3 sites, the focus has been on private development. To help inform decision-making about urban renewal and city-led redevelopment in this area, in 2022, the city then convened what is called the Gilman Square City Redevelopment Parcels Civic Advisory Committee, so CAC. And the CAC, as is done in other neighborhoods, is meant to advise both the city and the SRA on the redevelopment and disposition of city-owned parcels and the potential use of urban renewal or eminent domain on the mobile station. So they're really focused on those 2 city-owned parcels and then the mobile station. And the CAC includes membership from local residents, from language-speaking communities, and from the Gilman Square Neighborhood Council, amongst other groups. There's about 12 to 14 members when it's fully filled out. There's also 2 counselors that serve on that committee. The CAC conducted extensive engagement throughout 2022 to learn what community members want from development on the site. And this included things like providing a no-hill route from Medford Street and Pearl Street up to the station, since it's difficult to access just from the School Street Bridge. Also including a variety of comfortable outdoor public spaces or green spaces year-round, since residents felt there were not enough of those in the neighborhood. Also prioritizing housing on the upper floors of development, addressing neighborhood flooding, and a slew of other goals that really the community is hoping to get as a benefit from development in this area. Currently, however, the CAC's work on the Homans lot and the Triangle Park has stalled as the city is completing a study of all of its land holdings over the next probably 6 to 8 months. While this limitation is focused on the city-owned land, it also impacts whether the CAC feels it can make a recommendation about urban renewal for the mobile station, since the Homans lot and the mobile station have commonly been linked. And staff have heard concerns both from CAC members and other members of the community, including the neighborhood council, that not being able to make a decision about urban renewal then causes sort of a general anxiety in the neighborhood for the owner of the mobile station and for developers in general. And they worry about this impact on the desire to redevelop locally. And so because of this, staff have started a conversation in the CAC. So we started a conversation at the last meeting to really lay out some of these anxieties and ask if members would like to make a formal recommendation about taking urban renewal off the table. No recommendation has been made at this time to the SRA, and there is still a lot more conversation to be had within the Civic Advisory Committee, really focusing on that as a forum for community conversation. But staff will keep SRA members updated as to any decision that comes out of these conversations in the coming months. And the CAC also concurrently is considering a hiatus as the city finishes its study of its land holdings. So we'll also keep the SRA informed if the CAC decides to take that hiatus. So regardless, I know this is a lot of context. There's a lot of engagement in Gilman Square. It's a very active community. So we wanted you to be aware of some of that current context of why urban renewal has been considered in Gilman Square and sort of some of the updates that you can anticipate in the coming months. A lot of material though. So I do want to turn it over if there are any questions from SRA members at this time. There's no question being asked from staff to SRA members this evening. It'll just be updates in the coming months.
I have a
Ben, I'm sorry. Pat, did someone have their hand raised?
Yeah, I did, but
ahead.
why don't you go ahead and then I could follow?
Can you, Ben, if you don't mind, can you put that last page up again? I just want to refer to the, I guess, the general anxiety about eminent domain. So that there's a general anxiety in the neighborhood for the owner of the mobile station and for developers in general. Are there developers in general that have approached the city in regards to redeveloping any of those sites there, or is this where is that coming from?
Yeah, so at this point, no developers have directly approached the city about developing those sites, but we have heard from members of the neighborhood council and from other community members that they have spoken with development teams and are hearing that general sense of anxiety. So it's also trying to give space and hear the fact that others are hearing an anxiety, but the city has not directly spoken with development teams to hear that anxiety directly.
So what is the context of the anxieties? That the SRA will take properties by eminent domain, or?
Yeah, I think so. With the mobile station owner specifically, there is the concern that the focus on urban renewal on that site and then tying urban renewal discursively to the Homans lot, the fact that we're not ready to move forward on the Homans lot is not allowing that landowner to sell. And so sort of, I mean, it doesn't actually stop anyone from bringing forward a proposal, and we have discussed that with the owner of the mobile station. But the concern that urban renewal could then be used in the future to take the site. But I think, yes, when it's come up in conversation, it's also just a general concern that urban renewal could be used elsewhere in the neighborhood, though we've really focused in those conversations on the fact that the consideration at the CAC of urban renewal has really just been focused on the mobile station. So it's not really being considered actively at those other sites.
Okay, and those other sites with the building across from the Holman's lot, are those buildings vacant or are they currently occupied?
From my understanding, they're currently occupied. Rachel, if you have any additional context.
It's a mix. So the Ben, if you want to bring the map back up, maybe. There's 3 sites that, again, in the years since the plan was published now 10 years ago, this conversation. Lot 5 generally at the moment is off the table. That is the parking lot that goes with Mad Oyster's the artist studios. That there's been lots of conversation. The neighborhood's quite happy with the status. The artists are actively using the lot. It is an active parking lot. Not a lot of interest in redevelopment at this point in time. Lots 2 and 3 are sitting on either side of what is commonly referred to as the piano building, because there is a sign for the piano shop. There have been over the years various proposals on both of those properties that have come through as far as making a formal proposal to the city. Neither have moved forward. There was a lawsuit related to the zoning along that stretch of Medford Street, related to the piano building being in the fabrication zone, and lawsuits related between the property owners themselves. So those have all resolved in the course of the last several months. And so it would not surprise me to see an active proposal again from either the lots 2, 3, or the property in the middle coming up in as the market transitions. We are seeing, though, across all market types a little bit of a lull in activity because of where interest rates and construction costs are. So we do expect that there's probably planning happening in the background that we haven't been, it isn't ripe yet for city conversations.
Okay,
But yeah, then those are a mix. So I would say the question was like, are they vacant or not? So lot 3 is a vacant lot that was, I think it's often referred as like the ABJ lot. I'm hoping getting those letters correct. And then lot 2 is good gas. That is a very active gas station.
Okay, yeah, because my question too, not a question, but my concern was the contamination from the mobile gas lot and also from, I think it's lot 3 there, it was a former auto, I don't know if it was auto body shop or, you know, whatever, auto repair or whatever it was there. So, and whether, you know, building number 2 is being utilized to the extent that it should. So anyway, all right, okay, you've answered my questions. Thank you, Rachel. Christine, you were gonna ask some questions?
Yeah, I think site number, so first of all, I think site number 2, if I'm looking, because I'm looking at Google Earth or Google Maps, is the site Good Gas? So it's a gas station, right? So
correct.
I don't think it's the business of the SRA to take gas station sites, because that could potentially expose the city to environmental issues. And I suspect the hole in the ground in Teal Square is due to environmental issues. So I don't think we're in the business of creating holes, you know, for the city. I think that would be a bad decision on our part. But instead, to let the market forces dictate what happens on those sites. Let the market take on that environmental risk. Let the seller and the buyer negotiate how the market dictates to figure out who's going to be on the hook for potential environmental issues on those 2 sites. I don't think it's the business of the SRA to do that. So that's the first comment. The second comment is, yes, is that, I mean, I just question the mobile owners' angst, because I thought the SRA, absent not wanting to take on environmental risk, the job of the SRA is to remove economic blight and move economic process forward. So why is that a problem? I'm just trying to figure out, why would that be a problem for the mobile owner to, instead of having a vacant site next door, have something that the SRA process is a catalyst to? And so I'm just trying to figure out, I guess I'm kind of asking Phil's question in another way, like, where is this angst coming from? Because I don't think the SRA wants to stand in the way of progress. I think we're a catalyst to progress. I thought that was part of our mission and our job. So I guess I would just invite the CAC members to maybe be a little bit more specific as to their concerns. But I also think our job as the SRA is to not react to gossip if it's just gossip. And our job is also not to make the mobile owner wealthier by doing something that would benefit him exclusively. I mean, it's really about economic development in the city and moving progress forward and removing blight for all. And if that station is active, it's not blight. So I guess I'm a little confused by the comments coming from the CAC.
Yeah, as I was.
Patrick, are you looking to ask a question
Patrick?
or respond to that?
A question sort of builds on that, but through you, Mr. Chair, Ben, if you want, or Rachel wanted to follow up first, that's fine.
Sure. Yeah, I think to respond to the main part of that, so the way that this has been discussed within the Civic Advisory Committee is that there is the potential for use of urban renewal at the mobile station. If that...
Why?
Yeah, from my understanding from past conversation, it has been discussed as potentially eligible or to be considered as a blighted area. Though again, that is obviously up to the determination of the redevelopment authority. So if the redevelopment authority doesn't agree with that, that's obviously something that we would encourage expressing within the context of the CAC. I think to give more context to that anxiety and why they're discussing it at the CAC, that is discussed as a potential site that could be part of an urban renewal plan. And so I think that's sort of where the context for their anxiety comes from, or where the anxiety they're hearing. It's not necessarily just hearsay. That's how it's often been discussed in that forum.
Rachel?
I think a big part of it is, and you can kind of see it even in the sketch plan that was included in 2014 here is that it is quite limited because of its size and shape. It narrows up very tightly at the back, and the city owns a chunk of the land that is actually right up against the track behind their property. And the city sort of wraps around, and so one of the challenges here has been that their site is more valuable in conjunction with redevelopment of the city's property. And so one of the ideas I think that has existed since 2014 is, does urban renewal as a tool lead to the most, like, the highest and best use of both pieces? Because you can then do a more regular shaped structure on the mobile, like on the School Street edge. Now, what we've talked with the mobile station owner about is that they can continue to pursue a project at their site if they can find, if they want to, and they've been talking to the development world about their property. We've expressed that the city is just not in a position at this moment to progress with the sale and the disposition as we thought we were. We thought we were on a track to be doing that disposition this year. There's a lot of moving pieces. We're really coming to understand that we do need to look citywide to understand all the city's land holdings and make sure we are not giving this away until we are confident that we're ready to do that disposition. And thinking about what partnership might look like. As they've been having these conversations, though, I think that's where I think the idea of urban renewal kind of stems from those, like, can that property be joined up with the city's property? Urban renewal is a tool that allows that to happen. That could also just be a bonus, right? Like, if we put out an RFP for the city's property and the person who, people who are responding it then say, hey, mobile station owner, I'm ready to buy your property. Like, it could go down in a private deal as well. But the idea was, going back to 2014, explore if urban renewal is a tool that helps get there. Sorry for being long-winded.
That's okay. Any?
So just to be clear, the city owns lot number 1, or the lot 1 labeled in this, the Holman's lot. Okay.
Yes.
And
That was
yes,
that
I
area.
would,
Oh, sorry.
I would just say that, yes, if the city put lot number 1, the Holman's lot, up for disposition through an RFP process, presumably whoever the developer or the proposals that the city would receive would likely have some sort of a permitting period or some sort of period before closing for the developer to figure out what they can do on the site, right? And to verify that the offer that they've submitted, they can actually, bring to fruition. During that period of time, they could also then enter conversations with the owner of the mobile station and, potentially tie both sites up at the same time. That's very, very common scenario. So removing the city from that chain of title, but where the city could potentially be a partner in that is allowing that developer, that period of time to go explore tying the two sites up together. Presumably, they're also dealing with their permitting at that point too, right? So it's not like you're giving them extra time, but you're just understanding that they may then, during that period of time before they close on the land, go talk to the mobile owner. And not to say the sale's contingent on doing a deal there, but you're giving that party time to explore that potential. Particularly considering this is a mobile station, like, I just don't think the SRA wants to be in the business of owning gas stations or former gas station sites, given the environmental liability you step into as an owner. So presumably this, anyways, the Holman's lot, given it's right next to the train station, I mean, when residential development reemerges, and it will at some point, this will be a wonderful site. And yes, tying it to the, having a little extra land there, seemingly would help, it would be, I don't know if it would be accretive, but it would be more about, it would add development potential to the overall project. Go ahead. So I'm done, Rachel. And Rachel, you've been cutting out, so I don't know if you want to turn off your, video.
Right,
Rachel,
any-
do you have oh, sorry, Phil.
No, I was just gonna ask if any of the other members have any other questions or comments at this time.
Yeah, yes.
Patrick?
Well, look, I concur, with Christine's comments, and I think it seems like this may be as much a communication problem and general anxiety problem. I mean, I haven't attended any of the CAC meetings. I'd be open to if we think that could be helpful to having some representation. My sense in talking to some people in the area is where the anxiety starts is just nothing's happened yet, and they've been waiting a long time. And, so I not that it matters much, but I'd be curious the extent to which there is a general understanding on the CAC that a lot of this is just triggered by forces that weren't known in 2014, and plans, including the change in the T station location. And of course, more recently, changes in the market, as well as, as Rachel and Ben have said, looking at the overall plan across the city, I think we all know that the chances of a mixed use that might have been envisioned back then under the current market are not as likely. Whereas, like Christine said, residential, however volatile that is more likely, and maybe that's fine. But I guess, those are some comments, but I wonder, whether that rings true, that some of the anxiety is just things are in it, apart from the mobile owner, which, that individual or group has their interests in mind, and we can see why they're, wishing the city was ready to move. In the neighborhood, is there a sense of needing to change plans, not only because of the physical layout in the T, but also because of the market and what the neighborhood might be able to get, given current circumstances? Did that make sense?
Yeah, can you just ask that one more time?
Yeah, I guess I'm just wondering, in as much as the CAC is representative of the neighborhood at this point, and leaving aside the need for the city to look more deeply, broader than just Gilman neighborhood plan, is there a sense in terms of those priorities that are up to date in terms of the kind of development that would occur?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I will say, to the point of, it's been a long time since something, like, just waiting a long time on this. I think a lot of the general anxiety that we've heard is also just tied to the redevelopment of the city-owned parcels in that area, which obviously the piece for the mobile station and the question of urban renewal gets tied to that broader question of redevelopment. And it's definitely a question that's been brought up, of sort of parts of the 2014 plan, obviously the station not looking like what it was intended to look like. Parts of that plan do not necessarily apply, but there has definitely still been consistent engagement from the community. And I think there will still be sort of forums for engagement in terms of articulating a new vision. And so that's sort of like where that conversation is shifting. But I do think that to the point of general anxieties about seeing something, I think there is a truth to that, in that, yeah, people, not just the city-owned parcels, not just the mobile station, but also the other private sites in this area that people have been hoping to see development on for the past decade, since that articulation in the plan, there hasn't been a lot of movement.
Right. Well, and maybe something else to sort of propose, if it's helpful and if other members agree, is that in as much as we can convey that, from the SRA's perspective, if there's general agreement, any kind of intervention is very much a last resort. And, in as much as it was talked about going back 10 years, that should have always been the case. And, to Christine's point, even more so in complicated locations that may have environmental issues, but that urban renewal is about supporting city and neighborhood objectives. It's not about simply, disrupting. And I think, I don't know if it'd be helpful if we could make kind of a general statement that there's no underlying intention, that it's an intervention of last resort, if that makes sense.
Patrick, yeah, I agree. I think it does make sense. I think it would be helpful too. You, Rachel or Ben, you'd indicated that there is a city-owned disposition plan or study going on. There've been several over the past 20 years, and it would just be interesting to know, the results of that. I think it would be helpful to the board as well as the neighborhood, of course, and the CAC as to what is the city's, because it harkens back to the public safety building. It harkens back to other, the kind of the diaspora of city agencies all over the city. And it'd be interesting to, and the Holman's building, when it was still there, was under consideration for redevelopment or reuse as a city-owned building to house offices. So I think it might be helpful to see that. Where are they, Ben or Rachel? Where is the city in regards to that? At what stage are they?
We are just at the beginning. Part of we're down a couple folks. So we're in the process of hiring for the senior planner role. And the intent is that senior planner will be focused on this project. And that this is the thing that they will step into managing right away. It is, the timing of it is also, part of it is that with Winter Hill School, we're really trying to sort of take a broader look at what does the city hold, what are our aspirations, and for community facilities, for housing, for all these different things, and see what sites are we really ready to let go of, and what might we need to hold for some of these other moves. We're trying to just understand.
Okay, because it would be helpful to the board, the SRA.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes sense.
Okay.
Can I add one more piece of context
Yes,
related to Christine's point, just because I think it's helpful? One of the earlier stages of this process was also understanding, and why urban renewal, I think, has been on the table for so long, was as this site was being designed, especially once the station moved, there was this question, there's been this question of, should that school in Medford Street corner be a building, or should that be an open space? And so there was a whole study in 2021 that was really looking at what layouts of buildings would physically fit on the site. And in that engagement, one of the things that was learned was that there is interest in the neighborhood of holding that corner with a building and not putting the open space there. And so just sort of the idea of urban renewal being that last resort. There was an earlier, in the not distant past, there was a conversation of should there be just a regular taking of the property for true public purpose, for there was a question of, should it be open space? Should it be this? There's been this conversation, there's a conversation about a stormwater tank that might need to be at the site. And so we've gone through several rounds. And so there is, I think from the mobile stations owner's perspective and the neighborhood sort of that perspective of a taking being on the table, different than an urban renewal taking, but the idea of a taking has been sort of considered and taken off the list a couple of times. So that's just it is part of the story that I felt it might be good context for you all to have.
And I think too, now that the high school has been built and the train station has been built, there's different considerations now than there were 5 years ago or 10 years ago from a planning perspective. So, so I guess this is still evolving in many respects. And so Christine and Patrick's comments are well taken.
May I ask one more question?
Go ahead, Christine.
On site 4, the triangular park, again, looking at Google Maps, I'm noting that is open space. What's the conversation been at the CAC with that space? Do they want to keep it open space, or are they amenable to development happening there?
Yeah, so from my understanding, they are amenable to development in that space, but in that case, we would look towards the Homans lot and any development on that site to sort of make up that open space. I think that's how the conversation has been had previously.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there's like a building now to the plan right of the Homans lot. It's like
Do you
a
mean-
white.
Do you mean okay, so it's called the TPSS, so that stands for, I think, Transit Power Substation or something similar to that. So that's an MBTA structure.
Okay, right.
Yeah, there have been conversations previously about having art on 3 sides of that station. We're at a bit of a standstill with that because of a permitting issue with the MBTA, but that's something that we continue to push for because it is a very visible, large.
Right, that would be
box.
great. That would be great. I mean, that would be lovely to have art. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
And Patrick,
Alright.
I see your hand is still up. Sorry, Phil.
No, go ahead. I was
Oh,
acknowledging.
I failed to lower it. Thank you.
Okay. Patrick has volunteered, I think, in some respects to, if he wanted to attend a CAC meeting for informational purposes. So if you could just let Patrick and the rest of the board know when the next meeting of the CAC is. If anyone is interested in attending, this certainly can do
Sure,
that.
yeah, I can always share that information. I can also always share recordings of previous meetings. So those
Okay.
are all recorded and posted on the city's YouTube channel. And then obviously, if there's ever anything that the SRA wants to summarize for staff to express back to the CAC, we're happy to do that.
Okay. All right, thanks, Ben. Any other questions of staff? Okay, seeing none, the next item on the agenda is a discussion of SRA land holdings.
Yes, that is also me. Just give me 1 second.
Yep.
Okay, are you able to see this?
Yes.
Yes.
So this will be a shorter presentation. So we wanted to take some time today to review the SRA's current land holdings in anticipation of a potential request to transfer some of this land to the city in a future meeting. So no such request is being made this evening, but just to sort of set the stage for that future conversation. So as SRA members likely know from the last annual report, the SRA currently owns 6 parcels of land throughout the city. So these are 90 Washington Street, and then we have what is called the Lot 5 portion of the D2 parcel in the Union Square revitalization plan. So this is an area that's directly adjacent to 9 to 11 Allen Street, sort of in the back alleys of the D2 development. And then there are 4 parcels in Boynton Yards. So we have 100 and 138 South Street, and these are the 2 sites that are being used by Groundwork Somerville, so an urban agriculture nonprofit. And then there's a thin portion that is addressed as 0 Windsor Place, which technically has 3 different sub parcels that we'll look a little closer at. And they sort of go here along Windsor Place and then along the northeastern portion of Windsor Street, and then also 24 Medford Street, which is at the northwest corner of the intersection of Medford and South Streets. Some of these sites have more immediate uses or they're in active urban renewal areas, but a few of them do not currently have a use, but they're anticipated to be needed for infrastructure or right-of-way projects in the coming years. So as I mentioned, we want to explore the option of transferring these parcels from the SRA to the city to facilitate those projects. The first of these are the 3 sublots shown here, which, as I mentioned, they're addressed as 0 Windsor Place, but they're distinct from the 0 Windsor Place parcel to the northeast. The SRA's ownership of these parcels creates a couple awkward situations. So the 600 Windsor parcel directly north of the long thin portion that you see here doesn't actually have a frontage on the public way, which can create sort of an awkward situation. And then also Earl Street here is being improved over the next 5 to 7 years and made into a public way. And currently this sublot here, so sublot 96A44, creates sort of this awkward separation between Windsor Place and Windsor Street and then Earl Street. And they also just kind of complicate general city work on the right of way in this area by adding a step in which easements are needed from the SRA. So for instance, in the coming months, there will likely be a conversation about an Eversource easement that is needed along this portion of the SRA's land. And it sort of requires that added step of coming to the SRA to discuss that easement over this very thin parcel. So that's one area that we're going to be looking at in the next couple of months. And then the second is 24 Medford Street. So the Mobility Division of the Mayor's Office of Strategic Planning and Community Development, OSPCD, is currently working on a slight redesign of this intersection to sort of tee it off, which will likely require using a portion of SRA-owned land here, especially because the SRA actually owns the sidewalk adjacent to the site. And then in the longer term, there's also likely work that will need to be done to widen South Street as Boynton Yards continues to grow. So given these, we'll likely be proposing that the SRA transfers these specific parcels to the city to facilitate those processes. Staff have been discussing this and we don't have a specific reason for the SRA not to do this, as I mentioned, since these sites are not in use and they're not in active urban renewal areas that might require transferring them to a private development team. But we can sort of plan to get deeper into questions when we make an actual request. But I wanted to, having presented these and talked a bit about these sites, I wanted to also look to SRA members if there are any initial thoughts about the idea of transferring this land to the city.
Any concerns from any of the members relative to that? It seems like fairly straightforward, but. Okay, seeing none, Ben, thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you all.
Okay, next item on the agenda is any items not reasonably anticipated by the chair. Seeing none, then I'm going to reiterate that our next meeting is now scheduled for Tuesday, March 12th, 2024. And we will be meeting on the second Tuesday of each month going forward. And so the next item on the agenda is the adjournment of the meeting. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Patrick, you make a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Awana Bonnie seconds. So we'll do a roll call vote. Awana Bonnie.
Yes.
Ben Ewan Campen couldn't attend. William Gage is not in attendance. Patrick McCormick.
Mr. Gage is there.
Yeah, he's here.
Oh, Mr. Gage, I see you. Sorry for the omission. I don't know if he can even hear me, but I'll wave to him.
Looks
At any
Bill,
rate,
Bill, can you hear
is
us?
here.
He may
Yeah.
be frozen.
All right. He votes present.
Oh,
It
he's
is.
back.
Oh, okay. Bill, I was wondering if you would vote to approve the, a motion to adjourn. Now that you're with us.
He said
Okay,
yes.
Great. Okay, Christine Stone
Yes.
and myself, Phil Erkeling, have voted to adjourn. All right. See everybody in 3 weeks.
Bye.
Okay.
Thank
bye-bye.
you.
Good night,
Bye.
thanks.
Good night.
Good night.